Welcome to the course Digital Transformation and Technological Innovation. So, as we talked about in the last session, this is being introduced as a core course for information systems discipline. And in the last session, we were talking about some of the directions for innovation in information system research. So, let's continue with that. So, we talked about the human angle in the last part of the previous session. Now, let us continue directions for innovation in information systems. Now, if we take another angle, which is the information angle, right. So, another line of research that typically IS researchers they undertake is that using different information or providing information in different form or level of detail. So, because most in the information system they have a machine element, there is an input and there would be a processing and then there would be output. So, everything is relying on data. So, can we work on the data, can we improve it, can we take different information from maybe by changing the source, or maybe we can provide additional information, or maybe different form presentation of the information we can do. For example, if we are talking about the AI system like we do feature engineering, right. So, similarly we can look at from different information perspective, and we can look at the level of detail kind of detail that was being used by the information system, right. So, this is another angle for innovation or research in information systems. The next one is the technology angle. So, in the technology angle we are directly focusing on the the technology subsystem of it or the machine element of information system, where we can look at reconfiguring the system, whether reconfiguration or different aspects of it, whether that can help improve the system, the current state of it. And then we can always talk about the upgrading. As we talked about, most of the software products there would be a new version that will be keep coming, that will come up, just like we see in our operating systems that we install in our machines, right. Every few days there would be an update to it. So, very similar thing we are talking about here. Whatever machine component that we have, it might get an upgrade. So, to be able to work on that upgrade, that becomes what kind of upgrade can be there, what kind of changes, improvement, bug fixes and other aspects, software engineering aspects or the program design architecture aspects can be improved. So, that also can be another angle for innovation. So, upgrading and then replacing technologies, right. So, some of the components within the machine that might be useful earlier, but now with the advent of new technology we can replace that. For example, instead of using the keyboard or instead of using our mouse, computer mouse for interaction or for clicking, we can use touch screen. So, that is replacing the way input is being given to a particular computer, right. So, similarly we can look at different element of the technology which can be replaced because something new, something better has come up, and that can be incorporated, and therefore overall information systems can be changed. So, these are another set of angles that can be undertaken for innovation and research. Then what are the benefits of information systems? Now, data and information processing that is undertaken information system, that can create feedback mechanisms for decision making. So, this feedback mechanism in the sense people who are interacting with the system, they will tell what is working, what is not working, or in what scenario the output was not acceptable, whether and where is the issue, maybe the machine, maybe the input, maybe human error, maybe the process is not right. So, different element of information system can be looked at, but where that is coming from, that is feedback mechanisms, people interacting, and therefore that can be looked at to actually benefit, right. So, data information processing, the data, the logs that are there, that can be used to create feedbacks, and therefore we can improve the system. And the insights that we generate from information systems, right, the output that we generate from information systems, that will directly go into the decision making of the the manager or any decision maker or the business organization. Then what are other generic benefit of information systems? So, that is speed and accuracy. So, whatever you are doing manually or through a paper based system, if you use information systems where the machine, the algorithms and the interaction, the process and everything is very well defined, so that can improve the speed and accuracy, and therefore the productivity and efficiency benefits are there. And because of the productivity and efficiency benefits, there can be increased revenues, there can be reduced cost, and overall effect of all this can be that some of the organizational goals, for example increasing profits, improving customer service, those can be achieved. So, overall what we are trying to suggest here is the benefits of information systems, they go all the way to meeting organizational goals, which are increasing profits and improving customer service. But how things start? We start at the data information, and we generate the feedback mechanism for the system itself, and then for decision making, so that we keep on improving on, in terms of insights or the output that are getting generated through those systems. We improve on the speed and accuracy, and therefore the productivity, efficiency, the generic benefits of having information systems, they also help in a long way. Now, moving on to set the context here, why information systems are so important, and we see them everywhere in our professional and personal all walks of life. So, because we are into an era of information economy, everything is being driven by data, information through apps, through internet, through different systems that we interact with for every little thing that we do, right. So, basis of all this is information. Now, if we look at the information economy, the main value is coming from the way we are working with the information. So, the information, while it is helping with the overall process, outputs, inputs and everything, it in itself it has some value, right. So, in itself when we talk about a particular fact, for example what was the improvement in sales in the last quarter. So, that small piece of information, that sales growth in the last quarter, that information itself has a value, because if we have that information as a manager, we might be willing to act on it, we might be willing to make certain improvements or willing to do more focus on production or some sales aspect or the marketing aspect or the production operations aspect, right. So, that simple information that sales growth was less than previous quarter or more than previous quarter, that itself has a value. So, that is the point, information itself has value. And commerce that we typically do, that involves more often than not in the information economy some exchange of information, right. So, even if you are simply doing a financial transaction, that transaction from which account to sender's account to receiver's account, all that detail, the amount that is being transferred and the time stamp that goes with it, and maybe the app that you are using it, all that, right. So, there is so much of exchange of information that inherently happens in case of information economy, right. So, the exchange of information is there, and the information itself has a value, and then impact we have already talked about, right, the overall the impact of information systems and the benefits of information systems. So, all this put together is actually defining the era of information economy. Now, moving on, now digital, online or electronic mode, these are the digital, online, electronics terms being used interchangeably quite often nowadays. So, what they enable? So, few examples are here. For example, investment decision involving large amounts. So, if you did not have the digital means, the digital, online, electronic means, the information systems that we get to look at our stocks, we log into our system, the accounts that we have from banks, demat accounts, bank accounts and other things, because we have access to some of our accounts and the stock information and all that, we are able to, we are not relying on the manual process or the physical process of getting the cash or amount to be able to buy a particular stock, right. So, all that is taken away, the constraints of the physical world are taken away, and if we have the amount with us in the bank, we can make that investment decisions. So, any large amount also we can make investment decisions, but when we face the physical constraints, we cannot carry that large amount of cash from one place to another. So, obviously people used to carry, and there were challenges and risk and other things that were there. But now when we are in the information economy, when we are in the digital online electronic mode, so those constraints, those physical constraints of carrying cash are taken away. So, if in case you are making a large investment decision, that is immediately feasible because of the systems that are there in terms of payments, connection to the banks, connection to the your demat account and other things. Huge volume of financial transaction. Now, because it has become so easy to make financial transactions, for example, all of us we use UPI apps and there is no transaction fee. If you compare this with the credit card or the net banking options, you see that there is a clear transaction fee that is there. So, what has happened because of that, huge number of transactions are happening across the income segments of our country. So, huge volume of financial transactions are happening. So, why this is possible? Because digital online electronic mode, and all this defines the magic of or the era of information economy. Then if we look at the if we want to order supplies or distribution of goods, so that is also faster, because as we talked about in our examples of information systems, we talked about the e-commerce websites, the Amazon, Flipkart for food, Zomato, Swiggy for delivery, Blinkit and Instamarts and all that. So, even at the personal or professional level also the faster ordering is happening. Same is applicable for industries also. There are portals for the industries. In case of government organization, there is a government e-marketplace GEM. So, faster ordering of supplies, distribution of goods, that is feasible because of the digital online and electronic mode. So, all these aspects, these three important points define the information economy era that I talked about. Now, information as such is a central concept in information systems, right. So, we talked about earlier that information itself, it has its own value, and then the impact that it creates all around through information system. So, that is already there, but on its own it has a value. So, information is one of the most valuable resources for an organization, right. Now, where the information is coming from? Information coming from data. So, how do we define data? So, data consists of recorded raw facts, right. So, if we are going to a retail store, we are buying a set of items. So, all those items are part of our transactions with the retail store. So, that gets recorded, right. So, in the transaction processing systems. So, data consists of recorded raw facts, the set of items that we bought from a retail store. So, that will be recorded here, and so data consists of recorded raw facts representing real world things. So, the items that actual purchase that we do as a consumer from a retail store, so that is a real world activity that is happening. So, few examples: employee ID, for example, within an organization, total hours worked in a week, for your paycheck. That information, that data point will be used to generate your paycheck, your pay slip. Inventory part number, if you are managing inventory, so that is also a data point, which a particular inventory part, inventory item that is likely to see stock out, right. So, that data is important in that sense. Number of units produced, patient medical records. So, few examples I have given for different context, organization context mainly. So, essentially all these examples signify what data is about: recorded raw facts representing real world things. So, this definition of data is mainly in the information systems context, right. So, we are talking about the real world things and real transactions that is happening, that being recorded as a data point. Then moving on, if we want to define information. So, many times people are confused with what is data and what is information. So, data we already defined that recorded raw fact, which represents a real world thing, and the information now. So, how it is different, we will see. Information is a collection of data organized and processed. So, some sort of organization and processing is happening. So, that means data is being given a new representation, some organization, some processing is happening. So, information is collection of data organized and processed, so that it has additional value, right. So, simply saying that your employee ID is this or number of hours that you worked in this week is this, that is just a data point, right. So, when we talk about information, so we do some organization. So, we when we do that organization, the additional value comes. For example, how many hours you worked in the month, and therefore given those number of hours and given per day payment, this is your pay slip for the month, right. So, therefore, that additional value comes. So, when we place all the hours that are there day, for every day or for every week, we will list out all the hours of work, then essentially the summary gives us the information in terms of what is the kind of payment or paycheck is going to be there at the end of the month for that employee, right. So, that additional value is coming because we are able to present, list out all the hours for different days or weeks. So, that representation, that organization or that processing is creating additional value. So, therefore, data in terms of number of hours worked, that is now when presented for so many days, organized for so many days or weeks, then that becomes information, it brings in additional value. So, summarizing, similarly another example, summarizing individual sales data to see total sales, right. So, a manager might be more interested in seeing the total sales for the month. So, a manager would be more interested in seeing total sales for a month rather than looking at individual sales data point for different days or the weeks, right. So, that when you look at for the months, okay, you can compare with what happened in the previous month, right. So, therefore, this presentation of the data, sales on different days, and then total summary of it, the summarization of it or the organization and processing of it, which gives us the idea that okay, in a month what happened, that brings in additional value. So, that becomes information. So, there is some additional value which is coming because of organizing or processing data, and when that that value is there, then we say we arrive at a information. So, that being a difference between data and information, that information brings in additional value. You can act on information, you can only display the data, right, but you can act on information. So, therefore, because the information has an additional value. Then moving on, exchange of information. So, exchange of information stimulates activity and leads to better value creation, right. So, simple exchange day in day out, for many people day in day out, for some people once in a while you will see messages coming from retail stores and other websites that you have created account or given your mobile numbers to create account. They will be sending you the discount information, and they'll be giving you the details about the sales and that is happening, or the discount offers that are running, or the festival sale or some other seasonal sale that is happening. So, that simple masses, that exchange of information that there is a discount offering that is running for few days or for given dates, that can stimulate activity. What activity in this case? Because discount, we are talking about the discount offers, discount masses going to customers. So, people might visit those stores, people might log into those websites, and therefore, simple exchange of information might stimulate activity. So, therefore, this additional value, this additional value is coming because the exchange is happening. So, information, because it is organized and processed, so it will create additional value, and then because of the exchange that happens, then further value is created because it will stimulate some activity, right. So, let us move on. Now, next step is analysis of information, right. So, analysis of information integrated from different sources. Now, when we talk about the sales data or number of hours per employee, this is coming from maybe the source within the organization. But if you are doing some analysis for some organization level decision making, then you might be interested in knowing about the economy, how the market is going, how the interest rates are going, how the oil prices are going, and all those aspects. You might want to incorporate some of the happenings that are happening in your immediate environment or in the economy or in the industry or the economy in general or worldwide, some of that information might be important for your analysis, right. So, you might be willing to integrate information from different sources, so that you can generate better insights and then maximize desirable business outcomes, right. The market demand is likely to go up because some of the demand that was being catered by some other country, that is not happening because let us say war is happening, or some other scenario or crisis or it has happened, and because of that, that demand that was being served by one country might come to your country, and therefore part of that might come to you as an organization. So, therefore, if that source, that information, if you can quantize it, if you can measure it, then accordingly you can see what tiny part of that demand you can cater to, right. So, that analysis is needed, right. So, matching relevant content to customers, this is another example, matching relevant content to customers interest based on email marketing campaign data. So, this is another source. So, whatever data that you have from your transaction processing systems, that is there, that you can analyze and you can understand how the customer which come to your website or is your store, how they behave, how they make their purchases, other interactions, other transactions. But you can also do something like this email marketing campaign, and that data can give you additional inputs, and you can integrate that data also with your existing data, and therefore you can analyze that, and you can match some of the customers, some of the interest of the customers which were not earlier being catered to. So, therefore, this might produce additional sales because of this campaign data that is there. So, analysis, when we incorporate or integrate data or information from different sources, that can also help us generate new insights, and therefore help us maximize our desirable business outcomes. So, the next is, we already touched upon this, but few more pointers on this. How does data become information, right? So, data points arranged following a specific defined relationship. So, now we are coming to the way to do it, right. So, data points arranged following a specific defined relationship enable the emergence of a valuable piece of information, right. So, arrangement, we talked about, we can organize and process data, and there would be additional value, and that value differentiate information from data. So, that point is now being elaborated upon, that we need to define a relationship between data points and use that relationship to arrange the data, right. Similarly, adding new or different data can allow us to redefine a relationship. So, in light of new data, in light of different data, whatever relationship that we were earlier seeing for our data points, that can be redefined, and therefore a new information can be created, and then it might be possible for us to act on that new information because of the redefined relationship between data points, because of the addition of new data, right. So, then we can act on it, and therefore it can lead us to desirable business outcomes. So, for example, adding product data to sales data. So, earlier we were talking about the examples, sales data, day wise data, and we organize it in that way, day wise organization of sales data, and then we get a insight on what is the monthly sales like, right. Similarly, we can add product data to that sales data, and now what we can get is, we can get sales information organized by product, right. So, we can analyze which product line is doing better and which product line is not doing so well. So, when we add one more piece of information, which is a product data, right, in along with the sales data, then additional insights seems to be coming from that. Now, we have more information in terms of which product line is doing well or not. So, therefore, the focus of the managers and the other executives can shift to the underperforming product line, right. Moving on, perform data processing, right. So, how to transform data to information, right. Few pointers we talked about, right. Now few more things. So, what we do in data processing, the process of defining relationship among data points to create useful information, that is referred as data processing, right. So, when we have defined the relationship and we then act on it, then we will have to process the data, so that we are able to arrive at the useful information that we wanted for. So, this whole step is referred to as data processing. And here what do we mean by process? A set of logically related tasks performed to achieve a defined outcome, right. So, the defined relationship that we wanted to exploit, right, we follow a set of steps to process our data, so that we can arrive at the useful information. So, that overall data processing will lead us again to help us to transform our data into some meaningful information. Now, how do we know the relationships that are hidden in information? Till now we talked about data points, and you organize them, you arrange them, additional value information, right, and other aspects also we talked about. Then we also talked about that the relationships we transform based on the relationship. Now, but how do we know what relationships? So, what are the relationships that might work? So, how to know relationship hidden information? So, that is linked to the knowledge of the problem domain. So, we are working in an e-commerce domain. So, we need to have the knowledge of e-commerce itself, how different platforms they engage with different sites of the e-commerce platform, the buyers, the sellers, the interactions, different product categories that are there, the review comments that come, that act like a feedback loop, right. So, we need to have the overall knowledge of that particular domain, and that knowledge will give you the pointers as to what relationships might be hidden or underexplored, and therefore, we can take advantage of that. So, knowledge is a key here, knowledge of the problem domain. So, knowledge, understanding of relationship in a set of information, and how to make that information useful for decision making or performing a specific task. So, we got to use our domain knowledge to see what kind of relationships are typically there, and what is explored, what is not explored, and that is where we get our pointers in terms of what to experiment with, what to try for decision making or for performing the task itself. So, information in summary, to summarize what we have been discussing till now, information is data made more useful through the application of knowledge. Now, we have incorporated all these three elements, the information, the data and the knowledge, put together in one sentence, creating a gist out of it. Information is data made more useful through the application of knowledge. When you apply the knowledge, you know what relationships are underexplored, and therefore, you use those relationships to work on data, to arrange it in such a way that you get an information which is more useful, right. So, information is data made more useful through the application of knowledge. So, I hope the difference between the data, information and the knowledge is clear, because this is very crucial in the information systems discipline, right. Now, moving on to data again. So, data is stored, organized and manipulated using database systems. So, we will be talking about data system in a more details later, but while we have been talking about organizing and processing data, but data needs to be stored somewhere, so that we can interact with it and organize or manipulate it. So, that is done through database systems. So, we have a figure here. So, let us look at this. So, you can see collect and select data, maybe from sensor, maybe from log files, and all this raw data is coming in here, and then you create your you organize your data through your servers, machines, and here is a representation in terms of tabular layout. You can see row A column 1, row B column 2, row A column 3 and all that, and multiple rows in this, 3 columns in this, right. And then here you can see the analysis part, and then process and manipulate data. So, you maybe look at few measures, few metrics, and some summarization, averaging, counting. So, all these will give us new information about this data. So, these are the analysis points or summarization points, or we are working on the data, organizing or processing in such a way that they will provide us some useful information here. So, what is the transformation of data? So, transformation of data into useful and valuable results is considered more important than the sources and processing of data, right. So, processing and sources, so that is there, of course that is important, but how do we transform data, and what we make out of it, because data is to be organized and processed or transformed in such a way that we are able to arrive at useful information. So, that transformation part is considered more valuable in information systems in general, than the source of it or the processing of it on its own, right. Because the transformation will lead us to important information that we can act on it, and therefore, we can reach to our desirable business outcome, and therefore, the transformation is considered or given more value, right, because it is directly connected to the value of information. Now, what is value of information? So, how information helps in decision making to achieve the organization's goals and perform tasks more efficiently and effectively. So, the value of information depends on what is stated in this, that information should be able to help in decision making. So, whenever we work with information systems, inputs, the processing, the activities, the task, and then the output, right. So, whether the output, whether the information is leading to some insights, some decision making that is improving our output or enriching our input, or processing is simpler, better, right, faster or speedier, some element of it. So, when information touches some element of it, then it creates value, right, and overall the system becomes, because overall system becomes efficient, effective, and we are able to reach to our desirable organizational goals, right. So, value of information is linked to this whole process. Now, value of information is linked to its data also. So, as we typically say, garbage in, garbage out. So, the data is the starting point. So, obviously, we are doing our own organization processing analysis, machine element is also there, the kind of processing and the task that would be run on it, right, that is also there. But essentially at the value of information is at a fundamental level is linked to its data. So, data related issues can undermine the value of information. So, if the garbage in, garbage out, that typical saying that holds here, right. So, we need to work on data quality. So, if there are issues with the data quality, so that can undermine the value of information. So, in this session what we have talked about, we completed the remaining part of research and innovation angles that are typically undertaken in information systems domain. Then we also talked about various aspects like how data is transformed into information, how the value is coming from, what are the relationships between data points, and then how to exploit those relationships, how to use knowledge, some of those angles we talked about, apply knowledge to understand relationship, then transform those data points and arrive at useful information, then act on those information to reach to desirable outcomes. We also talked about value of information and all those aspects. So, let us stop here and we will continue our discussion in the next session. Thank you.